Alrighty, friends. Welcome to my office today. We're working on about a 70% grade, which is comparable steepness to a double black diamond ski run. Heading down the mountain. Today, we started on top of the mountain and are working down to the south fork of the Yuba River. It's about 2,000 feet of vertical descent in half a mile. It's a real peach to work on. I just had to traverse down this crazy, cliffy, rocky stuff. And we're out here marking some trees. Right now we're about halfway down the mountain. The top part I was almost dying, so couldn't really record much, but hoping to share a little bit with you guys about timber cruising out here with the American Conservation Experience, working with the United States Forest Service in Tahoe National Forest. So let's learn a little bit about what the heck is timber cruising. I didn't even know before I got into this job. It was first week that I learned what we're actually doing out here. So it's a good time. Let's learn a little bit.
Alrighty friends, let's talk a bit about what I do for my day job. When I try to describe what I do in words, many folks don't really understand what I do and how hard this job really can be unless they've done this job before. Hopefully, through this video, you'll understand a little bit more about the sustainable harvesting of trees and the hard work it takes to start the process of going from tree to 2x4. Let's jump right into it. We begin the process by selecting a proposed timber sale unit from our project map of the area. After we have a unit in mind, we set out into the field with a GPS, flagging tape, and orange paint. Using these tools, we precisely post the boundary of the timber sale unit that will eventually be sold to logging companies. Sometimes, the virtual boundary on the map and the physical boundary in the field don't exactly line up. So it's very, very important to have a precise visual boundary before you take the next steps. To physically delineate the boundary in the field, we hike the whole perimeter of the unit as we tie flagging, place points on a GPS, and paint a few trees with orange dots. After the boundary is set, the next step is to select trees to be harvested. This is where the real work begins. Armed with a paint gun and numerous cans of blue paint, sometimes up to 25 pounds, the crew sets out to inspect every tree within the unit and select trees to be harvested. To mark, we spray blue paint to make an even band around the tree and 2 marks at the base of the stump to prevent timber theft. To the untrained eye, it really might seem like we just select whatever tree we feel like, but we actually follow a very detailed prescription set by our district's silviculturist. To put it generally, we're only allowed to select trees of a certain size, age, health, and species. In the area myself and the crew work, there are typically 5 different conifer species that we mark: sugar pines, ponderosa pines, Douglas firs, white firs, and incense cedars. As we go through the forest and select trees, we make efforts to thin out species that are undesirable, either due to them being shade tolerant and crowding non-shade tolerant species, or being susceptible to diseases that could spread throughout the stand. We also try to leave clumps of similar, robust trees to control erosion, provide habitat for native wildlife, encourage a more fire-resilient ecosystem, and leave a seed source for the next generation of trees. As we work our way through the stand selecting trees to be harvested, we yell out what species we mark to someone on the crew who's designated as the tallier for the day.
Doug!
This person has a very important job keeping track of every tree that is in the unit, so that information can be included when the sale occurs. Some days, we collectively mark over 1,000 trees, so we really don't want to lose track of that progress and have to hike through and recount all of them. The tallier also has another important role in the operation. There are different frequencies for each species of tree that we mark. When we finally reach that frequency, say, for example, we mark our 700th Doug fir, the tallier shouts out, "Cruise," meaning it's time to cruise the tree. It's funny, in everyday life, hearing the word cruise brings images of enjoying your time on a big ship, sipping on a margarita, or joyriding around without a specific destination in mind. But in forestry, it has a completely different meaning. When we cruise a tree, it means we measure the diameter, height, and analyze the tree with scrutiny, noting any defects, diagnosing diseases, and assessing the percent volume of merchantable wood in a tree, considering all of these issues. This means scouring the tree with your eyes, looking for fungal infections, rot, and other indicators of poor health, and then coming to a decision on how that affects the wood within the tree. Our district silviculturist then uses all of the data we collect to produce a statistical analysis of the health and value of the timber in the stand to include in timber sale documents. So, how exactly does chopping down a bunch of trees help nature? I did say sustainable timber harvesting at the beginning of the video, right? Well, let's talk about that a little bit. Currently, many of California's forests are severely overcrowded due to fire suppression strategies being used in our national forests for close to 100 years. This is part of the reason why there have been so many large, high-intensity wildfires in California in the last few years. Now, we have an understanding that forest ecosystems here actually need some low-intensity fire as part of their natural cycle, and management strategies are changing as a result. Before we adopted our fire suppression tactics, fires used to burn in small pockets, primarily on the forest floor, culling weak trees, controlling understory vegetation, keeping fungal infections at a minimum, and cycling nutrients throughout the ecosystem, leaving the strongest, fire-resilient trees to pass on their seeds to the next generation. But that's not how it is now. This is where us timber markers step in. Instead of letting these high-intensity burns continue, we try our best to simulate what fire used to do for the stand as we select trees for harvest. By clearing out unhealthy trees that connect the understory into the canopy of the older, more fire-resilient trees, and then burning the understory after logging, we give the established trees a fighting chance next time that a fire rolls through. As we say in timber, the choice is either you log it or lose it. So, all in all, this job sounds pretty nice, right? Walking through the woods for your whole day, listening to the wind whisper through the trees as bird songs surround you. Well, I got some bad news. It's definitely not all peaches and rainbows. Aside from the usual outdoor challenges, such as dehydration and being far from help, there are some very serious hazards that we always need to stay vigilant about. As I said earlier, as we mark through the unit, we have to inspect every merchantable tree, and that means every tree, regardless of if it's on a cliff, next to a hornet's nest, or surrounded by poison oak. Not to toot my own horn here, but the timber crew goes into places that very few would ever even consider venturing. Most of the time, laughter and sarcasm are all that get us through. To give a real example, in the 200-acre unit we've been working in for a little over a month, we start at the top of a mountain and descend to a river 2,000 feet below us in just half a mile of distance. While working in this area, we've had to cope with 90% slopes, falling rocks, cliffs, hornets, wasps, poison oak, rattlesnakes, and even the paint we spray onto the trees is toxic to humans. Try to dodge a spray on a 90% cliff. But it's all just another day in the office for us in the timber crew, and we do it 40 hours a week, just like any other job. As for how I feel about it,
Now we're traversing down a very, very steep cliff with thick vegetation. Just another day in timber. What a lovely, lovely day.
now I just want to say thank you so much for coming to work with me today. I hope you found this video to be interesting. If you did, please leave me a like and subscribe down below so you can be here for more outdoor content just like this. I'll see y'all in the next one. Stay groovy.
Doug. Beautiful.